When my grandmother died, I was on the cusp of turning 28. My memories of her were bittersweet and lived somewhere between fondue parties and a not-so-subtle disdain for my mother. Despite this, I was heartbroken when I lost her. Maybe it was guilt for not spending enough time by her bedside. Maybe it was watching a piece of my own childhood die with her. Maybe that's why she keeps coming to visit me. It has happened twice now. The first time, I was paralyzed with fear. Who wouldn't be, after seeing their grandmother appear exactly as she did on the day she died? Mouth slightly agape, the pain of a 4-year battle with cancer still etched in her face, even after finally receiving her so-called sweet release. When she disappeared, I convinced myself it was a waking nightmare. That explanation calmed me, but deep down on a visceral level, I knew it was complete bullshit. Something wasn't right. The second time it happened, I was clutching the windowsill, trying desperately not to vomit after yet another night of binge drinking. My grandmother appeared beside me. I knew she was there, but this time I was too terrified to look, and I didn't need to. I could feel her presence, and I knew she wasn't there to comfort me. Sooner or later, I would have to turn around if I ever wanted to leave the bathroom. The urge to vomit was replaced by pure fear, and each breath became harder than the last. I finally faced her, and that's when I saw her burst into flames. Her arms were outstretched, and her head rotated in a grotesque, carousel-like motion, slow enough for me to recognize her face, twisted in agony. I vomited everywhere, and then she vanished. I slid down the cool tile wall of my bathroom and collapsed onto the floor. Never before had I felt such equal parts shame and terror, even as an alcoholic. There is something fundamentally wrong with my life, and in a rare moment of clarity, I understand that now. But there is also something terribly wrong with my grandmother's afterlife, and I don't know what to make of it. I considered telling my mother, but why bother? She didn't shed a single tear when her own mother died. And in true Papa's family fashion, I'll probably carry on that tradition at her funeral too. 2 days passed without another visit, and I began to feel normal again. I slipped back into my desperate lifestyle, the one I pretended was glamorous and chic. That moment of clarity disappeared faster than the plastic seal on the bottle of bourbon I planned to nurse for the next several hours. I lifted the glass to my lips, and they burned. I closed my eyes in bliss. It was the first drink I'd had since the incident, and in that moment, it felt like everything I needed. I tipped the glass back completely, and then it hit me. Not the glass, the realization. It struck me so hard that my entire life flashed before my eyes in an instant. Wasn't that only supposed to happen when you were dying? I began to hyperventilate, and suddenly I understood the purpose of my grandmother's visits. She was in hell, and she was trying to tell me something. My grandmother, a virgin until marriage. My grandmother, a devout Catholic who attended church 3 times a week. She was in hell for eternity. And if she was in hell, what chance do I have of not joining her one day? As I walked into my local library, I felt at peace. Some people are addicted to heroin. I am addicted to literature. I love the way libraries are so organized. Not only are books separated by genre, but are also placed in alphabetical order. Beyond the placements of books, the library is a place of poetry, a place of silence. I like the quiet atmosphere. Some find this insipid, but they are mad. I search the shelves for an arousing story. With so many different choices, this could be an appalling task. How can I possibly choose? I browse many different sections, coming across the horror section. Today was a good day for something truly malevolent. Finding one, I go toward the common area and sit near a young lady. She wore a tightly fitted white blouse and skinny jeans. Her hair flowed past her shoulders. Her facial features are soft, and enjoyment radiated from her. I found her attractive. When I began reading, I kept catching myself staring at her, but as the novel went on, I became more fascinated by the story. Such majestic writing. My heart raced as the lawyer approached Mr. Hyde. A group of young adults walked into the library, yelling and cheering at each other. They are ignoring etiquette, sometimes and only sometimes while I am reading a tale, a baby or a child or even an adult cries, screams, or yells. It ruins the story, makes me frustrated. It takes me away from my mysterious island. My blood begins to boil from indignation. My heartbeat slows down, becoming louder and louder, until everyone can hear it. I know they can hear it, because everyone stares at me. Everyone looks at me laughing. Their eyes scream at me, humiliating me. I will show them. I will show them all. One of these days I will rip their voice boxes out. One of these days, I will gouge their eyes out. I will laugh as blood drips from my hands. I am not mad. Why and how can you say that I am? Mel, my mind is sharpened. It has not diminished. I can and will kill them. I will do it so slowly and quietly. No madman would be able to accomplish what I will do with such skill, such organization. The silence will be so that Stevenson, Verne, or Poe could not write such beauty and would find this to be egregiousness. But today is not the day. Maybe tomorrow, today is most definitely not organized. I shrugged and closed my book. Today I will not have my time of rest. Soon there will be silence, but not today. I took another glance at the attractive lady. Her blouse was red. Her eyes showed consternation. What shame she was such a beauty. I would have loved to take her home, but I'm positive that she was wearing a white blouse when I sat down. I cannot be with someone so disorganized, but she is quiet. I like that. I walked past her, walking towards the bookshelf. There replaced a strange story. I had to step over a body. His face looked panicked. I would be too if my larynx was lying next to me. More importantly, he was quiet. I like that. Is story KO, American English, me translation Karo, or line. By line ACHA, SE Bijo Taki me copy paste Kernimi. Ozan ho line Jock HTM, ho re ho is story me, Vi Karo FR. Dusser line, start Karo Dayco, example Ram go to school. Sam knelt down before her mother's grave. Tears welled up in her deep brown eyes with remembrance and sorrow. She felt a large, sturdy hand on her back. It was Michael's. His icy blue eyes pitted Sam, wondering how he could help save her from any more despair. As Sam looked back at the grave, Michael looked to Josh, who focused on the darkening clouds above. Michael knew he felt awkward since Sam and Josh had only broken up 2 months ago. He remembered the difficulty of getting Josh to even come. I just don't understand why I have to be there. You're her boyfriend now, dude. Josh had glared at him when Michael had to give Josh the news that Sam wanted him to come to the funeral as well. You're still one of her best friends, and she wants your support. Michael pleaded, trying to persuade Josh into going. He didn't want Josh to come anyway, but he knew Sam would be thoroughly displeased if he didn't manage to make Josh go. I'm going because her mom was always incredibly sweet to me. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, just don't let Sam know. You know how she is. With honesty, Josh nodded at Michael's words. If Sam wanted Josh there to support her, she would expect it. Michael felt sorry that he had lost such a great friend when he found such a loving and supporting relationship with Sam. I think it's time we headed out. The clouds are looking mighty threatening, Josh said quietly, hoping not to make Sam upset or angry. He exhaled loudly through his nostrils and continued to look up at the sky. I have a few umbrellas because it looked bad this morning. Michael pulled 3 out of Sam's massive purse. Josh chuckled. Geez, Sam, you could fit a baby elephant in there. Huh? Sam looked up and smiled. Josh always knew she liked jokes that weren't harmful, even if they were directed at her. She nodded and got up. It's just a shame I haven't tried to yet. She dabbed her eyes and wiped her nose with a few tissues. She took a deep breath and took an umbrella just as the drops started coming down. The rain came down in bullets. Michael was afraid that it was going to start hailing soon and that his umbrellas would be broken. He tried to get Sam to walk faster, but she kept walking at her own slow. Botch it. The rain started coming down in sheets, making it difficult to see beyond Josh, who was only a pace ahead. Josh looked around, knowing they might lose the path out of the cemetery if they kept walking. He called out for them to stop, but Sam wouldn't stop. She kept on walking. Michael was getting worried. He didn't remember any of the visible tombstones around them. He looked to Sam, searching for a sign of fear, but her eyes were filled with depression and loathing at the world. Eventually, Michael shouted to Sam that they should stop. He saw her look at him, but not really see him. Her eyes looked dazed, dead even. Her face lost that usual cheeriness it normally held constantly in her. Eyebrows were turned in a worried fashion. He grabbed her arms, asking if she was okay. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the rain stopped. Immediately, Joshua kept walking but stopped mid-step. He looked up at the sky. What the hell kind of storm was that? And where did it go? Josh was confused. He was a meteorologist, so he knew there should be some sort of cloud left after that rainstorm, but there wasn't a cloud to be seen. The grass wasn't even wet. There were no puddles, and the air took on a sudden weight of heat. Josh walked back to Sam and Michael with a questioning look. They looked around. We're lost. Great, Michael said. This must have been a deeper part of the cemetery. There were more statues of angels and crosses and women and men and children than regular tombstones. There were statues of Holy Mary and Jesus. There were statues of demons being killed by angels. But the one that stood out the most was the statue of a man in a cloak. His mask's nose and chin were so over-exaggerated that they almost touched each other. The mask looked happy in a very malicious way. Michael went to the back of the statue and saw the back of the head had scars written in Celtic writing all down the base of the neck and further. What type of statue is this? Michael returned to Sam's side, hoping the chill the statue gave off would subdue when next to her. He looks friendly, Sam said in a childlike voice. Josh looked at her with an expression like he couldn't believe she said that. To him, the statue looked far from friendly. It looked menacing. Josh went to go see the back of the statue and saw the markings on the head. What do these mean? Can you guys figure them out? Josh looked to Michael, hoping he would, but doubting it. Michael shook his head and looked to Sam, but she was obviously far gone. Her mouth was open just a crack and was moving so slightly that you couldn't truly tell what she was saying. She walked closer and closer to the statue, her arm gradually reaching out to touch the hem of the statue's cloak. Michael tried to coax her back to his side, but Sam ignored his pleading. The instant her fingers came in contact with the statue, it changed somehow. Josh looked at Michael, and then together they looked at Sam. She was clutching the end of the cloak. Sam, stop. Get over here now, Michael demanded, but she shot him a look of hatred towards him. Josh gasped at Sam. Her eyes, the pupils were cat-like, and the iris glowed a blood-red hue. Sam snarled at Michael and turned to the statue with a smile on her face. The statue looked down at her and laughed. Hello there, sweetie. The high-pitched feminine voice of a masculine male statue did not comfort Michael or Josh. Sam backed up and extended a hand to help down the now-living statue. It accepted with a childish giggle and stepped on the grass below the podium it was on. The moment its feet were on the ground, the grass beneath them deadened all life, sapped out as the statue seemed to be able to support its own weight more and more. Who are you? Josh asked hesitantly, not truly wanting an answer. All he wanted to do was grab Sam and escape. I am me, silly man. Are you hungry? The masked man turned its head similarly to that of a dog who is just hearing a new sound. I am master. I am so very hungry. Sam's voice was not hers, but it somehow sounded like her. This confused Michael. Sam, we need to go now. I don't think you're well. Michael took a step towards Sam, but she hissed at him, recoiling more towards the masked man. He laughed once more and patted her shoulder. It is safe, my love. They're going to join us for a bite to eat. The masked man caressed under Sam's chin, but didn't truly look at her. The mask was full view to Michael, giving him a horrible chill down his spine. The masked man bent down and whispered something in Sam's ear. Her eyes lit up and she bolted in an unknown direction. Josh was shocked at first, but immediately ran after her, followed closely behind by Michael. Very soon they lost Sam, but were still, following the sounds of her deep laughter and her running feet. Exhausted and confused, the boys took a rest. Man, I don't know what's up with your girlfriend, but she's obviously not Sam anymore. Josh huffed, hands on his thighs as he leaned against the statue of the Holy Mother. Don't go putting Sam down, Josh. She was your girlfriend too. Michael had his hands on his hips, staring at the statue of the Holy Mother. He was studying her face when he noticed something off. The statue was crying blood. She's a beauty, isn't she? The masked man's voice came from behind Michael, making both boys turn their heads quickly to see. The masked man had his head tilt to the side again, and the mask focused on Michael. Are you hungry? He asked again, with a mocking tone in his voice. Who are you, and what have you done to Sam? Josh shouted, full of hatred for this entity that changed Sam so much. The masked man only laughed his childish laugh. She was empty, so I filled her. Then he was gone. The two boys looked at one another, silently asking the other what was going on. No questions were answered. Sam's strange new laughter filled up the dead air, and the boys went back to running throughout the cemetery. When the laugh stopped, the boys were on the steps of a mortuary. It was a darker stone, covered in vines and cracking in most places. The words above the building were in the same Celtic writing that the masked man on the back of his head. Just as Josh was about to sit on the front steps, the door opened with a hiss. Michael looked at Josh, shrugged his shoulders, and slightly opened the door. Sam, are you in here? He called into the empty room. From what little light they could see, there were candles with bows on them. The candles looked as if they hadn't been used in ages, probably centuries, and the bows were either pink or blue, satin that had been fraying over the years. Cobwebs covered every inch of the walls. Josh walked up behind him and looked in as well. Josh repeated the call into the mortuary, hoping that there be an answer. Josh, Michael, anybody? Sam's real voice echoed from inside. It was dark and very hard to see, but there were sobs from deep within. Michael and Josh ran over to Sam, Michael putting his arm around Sam, reassuring her that she was safe. She was crouching behind a very large stone casket. In the walls surrounding them were small squares, symbolizing the burial places of once living people. I felt as if there were so many people inside of me. Every bit of my skin felt as if it was stretched and bloated out too far, and I wanted to cry. It hurt horribly. All the while this sound, this voice in my head telling me it was going to feast finally. Oh, Michael, I need to leave this place. And with those words, the mortuary's doors closed, and the candles began to burn and gave the room a slight glow, but it gave no warmth. The three friends were at the very end of the mortuary, and at this point they were all terrified. Sam was so scared she couldn't move and stayed in a crouching position. And in fear of another attack, Josh picked up an oddly placed fire poker, and Michael grabbed a steel sword from a decoration on the wall behind the large casket. The candles near the door of the mortuary gave out. Then a slow wail of a child seemed to be seeping from the walls, from within the burial places in the walls. What the hell is happening? Michael shouted to Sam as the cries of the child seemed to grow louder and multiply in voices. The next farthest candles went out, sending the front door in shadows. Above the wails, the three heard the masked man's voice sing. I remember the good old days, where I lured the children out of their beds by whispering false promises in their heads, of promises of candy and toys, of a place of wonderment for good girls and boys. All they'd have to do was pay the price of their company for me eternally. In return, they'd get to stay in my magical house where they could play, one by one I'd tempt them in, and foolish as they had doubts and scares, I assured them that all is well, and that the only thing they need do was sit in my chair. Once there, I wove a spell full of words, feeding them, nothing but poison to slow them. I'd make them dance by the slash of my whips and feast on their lovely flesh. With each line, Sam cried more hysterically, and her cries sounded closer to insanity than ever. The walls began shaking, and the squares seemed to threaten to open and release a horrible sight. Seeing her pain, Michael was enraged and ran full force towards the masked man. As he got close, he burst into flames. The flames were so bright that Josh could see the masked man's face had changed from the menacing smile to a horrible grimace, and that the eye holes shone a deep red. Fearing for Sam's life and his own, he ran towards the masked man with the pipe, but Josh simply disappeared as he passed through. The masked man, hearing the demise of both of her friends, Sam cried louder and more hysterical than ever. She shut her eyes, foolishly thinking that it would make the masked man go away, but it did not work. The last thing she felt was a sharp object piercing through her leg. Sam woke up with a scream, reaching next to her, instinctively searching for Michael. Realizing that she was in her own bed, she collapsed in horror of her own mind. How could she think something like that? It was all too horrible. Michael shifted and propped himself up on one arm, gently caressing Sam's back. Shuh. Don't worry, sweetie. It's all fine. I think we should get back to bed. Your mom's funeral is tomorrow. And don't forget to remind me to bring umbrellas. It's supposed to rain and bad tomorrow.
Please subscribe, friends. I've worked really hard. If you love your family, please subscribe.